Welcome back to So I Saw a Movie. I'm Courtney and I saw a movie. I am going to be going over the movie Colossal. I believe it came out in 2016. It is starring Anne Hathaway and Jason Sudeikis. And before moving forward, I do want to just trigger warning domestic violence, physical abuse, and emotional abuse. It's been a minute since I've been sitting here with some notes, but I got some notes. I'm also in here because my apartment being taken over by fruit flies, and this is like the one spot in my apartment that I haven't seen them. So I'm just hiding from them. They are staging a coup, and I don't know how much longer I have. But anyway, back to business. Before suggesting that anyone who is affected by these triggers scroll onward, I do want to offer some words and resources just because I know a lot of TV shows that touch on sensitive subjects such as this, they offer them at the end, and that means that you have to sit through the whole episode. If you don't want to sit through the whole episode, I do just ask you just chill out through this for a couple moments. So if you or anybody that you know and care about is affected or in an abusive relationship, you can go to thehotline.org for support. They have a lot of resources. I would also recommend going to a local shelter and getting a risk assessment taken. A risk assessment is a questionnaire that is administered by an individual working at a domestic violence shelter. And in those questions, they get a gauge for how high of a risk your partner or whomever you're talking about is to you and your safety. So I do want to state domestic violence situations are often very difficult because of the manipulations and the struggle for control. I personally was in one for quite some time and I wasn't able to see the red flags from within the relationship. For me, a risk assessment snapped me out of it and probably saved my life. So if you're in an abusive relationship, please know that this is not how you're meant to be treated. It's not how you deserve to be treated. That's not what love is. You deserve so much better. And keep in mind that some victims are one cycle short of survival. You always see the news and neighbors are like, oh, he wouldn't hurt a fly, like friggin', what's his name? Bates from, Psycho. They can hurt flies and they can hurt you. So please seek support and work on getting yourself to safety if you're able. For those who haven't been in a relationship or a situation like this and see one unfolding, please read up on how to best support your friend or family member. It is understandable that this is a very complicated position to be in, but you don't want to ostracize your friend. It's really difficult when you feel unsupported during these sorts of situations. So I just want to quickly go over common signs per the domestic violence hotline. I'm going to put all of this in the description on the video too, because it is important. So common signs of abusive behavior in a partner include, and this could be like one or two of these behaviors are a red flag that abuse may be present. So it could be like telling you that you never do anything right, showing extreme jealousy of your friends or time spent away, preventing or discouraging you from spending time with others, insulting, demeaning, or shaming you in front of other people or alone, preventing you from making your own decisions, controlling finances, pressuring you to have sex or perform sexual acts you're not comfortable with, pressuring you to use drugs or alcohol, intimidating you through threatening looks or actions, insulting your parenting or threatening to harm or take away your children or pets, intimidating you with weapons, destroying your belongings or home. Nobody deserves to experience abuse of any kind for any reason, and every type of abuse is serious. I also want to quickly go over the power and control wheel. If you've been in therapy and you've learned about abuse, power, and control, you know about this. If you've been in a Planned Parenthood, you've seen this before. So the power and control wheel, since relationship abuse and its complexity are hard to explain in a single diagram, the wheel presents a clear lens to examine domestic violence. It serves as the tactics partners use to keep survivors in a relationship. So the inside of the wheel makes up the subtle, continual behaviors over time, when the outer ring represents physical and sexual violence. So the abusive actions like those depicted in the outer ring reinforce the regular use of other more subtle methods found in the inner ring. So really quick before I keep saying really quick, before I continue, it's very important for you to document your abuse if you're safe to do so. It could be helpful if you are commonly gaslit, or if you need, it's validating, and if you need it for legal purposes, it's helpful. And then there's also planning resources from the domestic violence hotline outlining important information to keep in mind while creating a safety plan. It could be useful for survivors, friends, family members, or others, anyone concerned about their safety or the safety of someone else. On to the movie. So I went into Colossal completely blind. I didn't know the plot. I only knew the little like snippet that Netflix provided, and it looked like a movie, like a kaiju movie almost. A giant monster shows up, and then it seems like Anne Hathaway figures out that she can control it from a local park. It's kind of a Trojan horse disguised as like a kaiju film. It's largely about like abuse and control. The movie opens up with like a little girl in South Korea holding a Barbie doll, or looking for a Barbie doll, and this huge monster appears. And then it cuts to Anne Hathaway's character Gloria coming in from a night out on the town. So she's entering her apartment, she's sneaking in, tiptoeing, like, oh, don't want to get caught. And her boyfriend is awake because it's the morning, and she's like, whatever her face is, she wanted to go home. There is actually a fruit fly in here. If anyone knows how to get rid of fruit flies, please leave a comment. I have fly strips up. I have thrice bleached my drains. I did the vinegar and soap. I think I just need to move. They won't go away. I'm a very clean person. They won't go away. I'm very frustrated. This is very annoying. Anyway, back to Gloria. Talking about frustrated. Her boyfriend's really frustrated at her. She comes in, she's maybe drunk, definitely hungover, and she's making excuses as to why she's getting in the morning, let alone late at night. She like messes up her friend's name, and her boyfriend's like, who's that? And she's like, oh, did I say that? I meant this. So it kind of sounds like she's lying. And he is frustrated, and she's like, oh, you're mad. And he was like, well, how mad do you think I should be? And she's like, a little mad. And he slams a plate in the dish sink. He's like, a little mad. And then they start to fight. Basically, he says that, like, we're going to do this fight over and over again. You're going to say this, I'm going to say this, you're going to say this, I'm going to say this. And she's like, yep, pretty much sums it up. And he basically says at the end of that, like, I've packed up your belongings. They're in cheap luggage. You don't even have to return it. I need you out by the time I get home. And she's like, yo, what? And he leaves for work. And he's like, I love you, but I can't help you when you're like this. And he heads out, and in the street, they're in New York, so in the street, like, I guess their Gloria's friends are in a cab or something, and they see him walk out, and they're like, yep, okay, he's going to work. And then they all walk in with like alcohol and some snacks, and one person needs to charge their cell phone so that someone else can come. And Gloria is pretty much catatonic, but like it was evident that she had fully intended on having her friends over and partying when he left for work. From there, she moves back to her hometown. She goes to her old family home. She pulls the key out from under the mat. The place is completely empty, no furniture, no nothing. So she sleeps on the floor for the first night. Second day there, she walks over to the local store and she gets an air mattress, and she is on her way home carrying it in like a sack over her shoulder, and a pickup truck passes by, slows down, stops, backs it up, and it's Jason Sudeikis' character, Oscar. And he's like, Gloria? And then she's like, oh my God, it's you. And then he was like, I can't believe you were here, blah, 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 blah. So he was like, what are you up to? And she's like, oh, nothing. And she's carrying a fucking air mattress. And then he was like, do you want to hang out? And she was like, yeah, sure. And then he was like, we're going to go to work. And she's like, where is that? Oh, right, your dad's bar. And then, he's like, my dad's dead. And she's like, shit, that must have sucked for your mom. And he was like, yep, she died too. She's like, right. And he was like, you were at that funeral. And she's like, right. So they go to the bar, and they drink into the wee hours of the morning, and then she walks home with the air mattress. During her walk home, she cuts through a park with a playground at 8:05 a.m. while kids are walking to school. So she's got the thing over her shoulder, walking through. At this precise time in Seoul, South Korea, a giant monster appears that looks exactly like the one that appeared with the little girl, and is doing the same weird gesture walking through. So Gloria's sister calls her the next day, or I mean, I guess technically later that day, because she got home at 8:30 in the morning, asking her if she had seen it. She hadn't, because she'd been sleeping all day. And then she watches the news and she calls her boyfriend Tim, or her ex-boyfriend Tim, to be like, hey, did you see this? And he's like, yeah, I saw it. It happened 9 hours ago. Where the hell were you? Were you drinking all night? Were you up all night? Like, were you sleeping all day? Like, and then just like kind of like judging her and kind of like making her feel like shit. And then he ends the call. When she's rewatching the news, she notices that the monster's hands were scrunched up like how hers were. And she kind of just like, what is this? She doesn't really, she's like putting it together, but not really. The next morning, Oscar comes by, or really, I guess that afternoon. The timeline is kind of wonky because the days are not typical days, right? If she's going to sleep at 8 o'clock in the morning, she's not waking up until the afternoon, and then that's when like it feels like morning. So Oscar comes by and tells her that he has a job for her, and that they were talking last night about her needing work, and he offered her a job, and she said yes. And she was blackout drunk, so she has no recollection. So at first, Oscar seems pretty nice. And, you know, when going through and recounting the things that he did and the way that he was speaking, the filmmakers did a really, really good job. So, like, Oscar is learning that Gloria has a drinking problem because they just spent the night out drinking. She's blackout drunk. And they had discussed getting a job, and it seems like really nice. It seems like an act of kindness. It was a little weird that he regarded her like a celebrity princess when she got in his truck, but like the flags are like light pink right now. At first glance, it does seem like an act of kindness, but bar owners and like bartenders can clock someone with a drinking problem. So inviting her to work there kind of seemed really irresponsible. If I'm giving benefit of the doubt, it was irresponsible. But with the way that this movie's going, it was manipulative because it keeps her in her vice and out of control of herself. And then it puts the financial control in his dojo, right? Because he's her employer. He is in control of everything that she does while she is on premises and clocked in. So the next night they're working, and after they close up, they hang out with Oscar's friends, and one of the friends, Joel, kind of like catches a vibe that like, you know, maybe she likes me. And he leans in and goes to kiss her, and she kind of like recoils. She's like, whoa. And then Oscar gets so mad. So mad. He starts like screaming. He almost like, you know, gets into a fist fight with him. It's like a whole thing. And it was like disproportionate. It wasn't just like white knighting. It wasn't just like, you know, good small town guy stands up for city girl not getting kissed without being asked or whatever like that. The next day, Oscar shows up with a giant flat screen television. Massive. Gigantic. It was one of the old ones where it has like the big, in the back, it has like the big, I don't know, like the tubes, not the tubes. I don't know. It was the ones from like the early 2000s, and it had like the box underneath it. It's like a whole thing. It's like a whole thing. So he shows up with a TV. I don't know how he got it in by himself. I don't know how he got it in the house. They watched the news, and the monster showed up again. But the monster just kind of stood there and scratched the middle of its head, similar to how Gloria does when she's nervous. Gloria starts putting together that she might be the monster. She tests that theory by going to the playground the next day at 8:05 a.m. She raises one hand, and then she puts out both arms, and then she runs home, and she goes and she turns on the TV and she checks the news, and the monster appeared in Seoul. raised one hand, put out both arms. So I guess later that day or the next day, again, time is so weird in this movie. She's on a FaceTime call with her ex Tim, and like he's checking in, seeing how she's doing, and she's like, "Oh my god, doing a lot better. I have a job. I'm a waitress or whatever." I don't think that's when she said it. Or she said she had a job. Oh, her friend Oscar offered her a job. And then at that moment, Oscar comes with a futon, and Gloria goes and gets the door, and then she's talking to Oscar. She doesn't turn off the FaceTime calls, so Tim is there the whole time. And then he moves in with the futon, and she's so excited because the air mattress had popped. That was important. The air mattress completely lost air. Zero air. I have spent some time on air mattresses, and typically brand new air mattresses don't just deflate 100%. If they deflate, if there's a leak, if it's defective, it overnight you maybe lose like 25 to 50% of the air, but it's still kind of squishy. This thing was empty, empty, empty. So it's kind of weird. And then, lo and behold, here comes Oscar with a futon at the exact right moment to be a savior. And, oh, I had no idea that your air mattress was busted. I just happened to have this futon for you. So now he's helping her with her furniture, and she accepts it because she's really excited. She needs to sleep. She's very tired. She slept like crap. Because everything deflated completely. So Tim's on the phone, and he's very confused because she just kind of like walks out. And then that evening at the bar, Gloria decides to confide in her friends and shows them that she's the monster in Soul. During her demonstration, she has them sit on the bench, pull up whatever monsterfinder.org and watch that. And then she does this funny little dance that they had explained that Oscar did at a wedding. And then when they look up, she stops. And then when they look down, she does it again. And it's like silly and it's cute. And then they put together that it's her. And in Soul, people are running away in fear because there's a giant monster in their city showing up at the bay. And so they're shooting like missiles at her, and she kind of feels it from the playground. She's like, "Oh God, ow, oh." And then she like swats one away, and then she like mimics like fighting stance, and she's like, "All right, well, I'll," she's still kind of drunk. "Well, I'll get you then." And then she hits a helicopter, and the helicopter explodes, and she then starts like a helicopter with people in it, like. She's realizing the gravity of the situation. She realized that she was killing people as the monster, and she doesn't want to be on the playground. She's like, "This isn't fun. I don't want to do this anymore." And she's trying to take care of how she exits so that she doesn't hurt any more people. And she trips and falls, and Oscar steps into the playground to help her. And then the next afternoon, I guess, because that's 8:05 in the morning. So the next time she wakes up, Oscar's already in her house. Oscar is walking in with groceries and a newspaper, and she's confused. She's like, "Wait, what are you doing here?" He was like, "Oh, I got your keys, and I wanted to get you something. I wanted to, fix you something to eat." And like he's kind of making it as if he is just a really cool guy that's really just concerned about her. And she kind of like comes to, and then she realizes she fell. She was like, "How many people did I kill?" And he was like, no, don't worry about it. And she's like, "How many people did I kill?" And he was like, we'll just get you some food. And he has a newspaper, and he was like, "Well, that's not the only thing." And she's like, "What?" And the newspaper shows that a robot showed up that night. So when he stepped into the playground, his, I guess, kaiju avatar was a robot. So he is kind of like little boy giddy that he's part of it now, like, and we're seeing that he has her house key. So the flags are getting a little darker. Gloria, she wants to turn herself in, but Oscar convinces her that nobody would believe her, which is true. Who's gonna say, like, "I control the giant monster appearing in Soul. I'm the one who tripped, fell, and killed 100 people." So instead what she does is they go to a local, I think it's a restaurant or a market, and they have the gentleman write in Korean, write out an apology saying like, "Hey, I'm so sorry, it won't happen again." So then the next day she goes to the playground at 8:05, and she copies those symbols, and then the people of Seoul and then like the world at large, they read it and they say, okay, the monster's apologized. It seems to be a monster that comes in peace. Cool, 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 cool. That night at the bar, they go over it. Their friends are like, you idiot. Like, that's a very specific phrase. And then they were saying like, oh, well, we had them translate a couple of other phrases to try to throw them off, whatever, whatever. But also, who's going to believe that? This is where like Oster starts to get especially shitty, because his fun in the spotlight just started. So he's starting to use their secret as a way to manipulate Gloria. She doesn't want to drink anymore because the last time she drank, people got hurt. And she was like, he is asking like, hey, have a drink. And she's like, no, I'm not drinking. And he's like, well, why not? And she's like, well, the last time I drank, I did something stupid. And he's like, oh, so we're stupid. So he's twisting her words and he's getting like grumpy. And then my timelines are off. I'm so sorry. He wants to force her to drink. But I feel like what happened in between the apology and him being shitty is Gloria went to their friend Joel's house and they slept together, and she woke up and then she saw that there was a robot in Seoul on the news dancing and acting a fool. So she and Joel fucking hightail it to the playground and find out that Oscar is there with their other friend, Garth. Garth was in the movie Holes. I don't know the actor's name, but he was in the movie Holes. That's all I got. Oscar clocks that Gloria gets out of Joel's van at 8:05 in the morning and realizes that she spent the night with him. And he did not like that. So then he tries to force her to drink. He uses this as a tool of coercion, and he forces her to drink and then to work for him, and threatens that he'll go back to the park and kill entire neighborhoods if she doesn't comply. She doesn't drink, but then Oscar starts bullying their friend Garth because he was in the restroom, and I guess he had struggled with addiction, and he was like, Garth, we all know that you weren't taking a shit. Like, we know that you were like doing cocaine in the bathroom. And Garth was getting really upset, and rightfully so. So Garth storms out and he leaves. He's like, all right, fuck you, buddy. And then, Joel is still there, and Oscar tries to force Gloria to drink. She doesn't. She dumps out the beer. And then he uses intimidation. He's like, all right, fine then. And then he storms out with Joel, and they're heading to the park. And she was like, well, I'll call the police. He's like, fine, do it. Like, because he's got a lot of power here, because she knows that what she's saying is the truth. But it's very easy for him to spin it like she's a psychopath. So, especially as a bar owner in a small town, he's probably served the chief of police, and they're probably great buddies, and it's really easy to spin things. So, rewind. When she gets to the park with Joel and they're just goofing around, she slaps him across the face as the monster, and they kind of like fight a little bit, and the monster is now a hero. Okay, fast forward. Now he's mad. He's walking out of the bar. He wasn't able to control her and manipulate her. He threatened to, level fucking neighborhoods. And he is on his way to the park. She has no choice but to literally run across town on foot to try to catch up to him to prevent him from doing so. She finally makes it, and he's all smug. He's like, oh, you finally made it. They have like a fight. Like, he punches her in the face. He punches her in the gut. She punches him in the face. Like, she kicks him in the nads. And they fight. She falls to the ground, and he like stomps across the playground, smashing Soul. I had this written out in like the correct order, and then I chose to tell you in the incorrect order. But that's what we do. So after they had gotten into the first fight, when he realized that she was with Joel, he had Joel come by with a bunch of furniture, and he furnished her house. He is imposing himself in her life in many aspects, which again can seem nice, but is really an act of control. I fucked this up. I keep fucking this up because the timeline in this movie is probably the hardest thing about it, because every morning is nighttime, and every time she wakes up, it's the afternoon. I think before they get into the massive fight, yes, definitely before they get into the massive fight, Tim shows up. Her ex-boyfriend shows up. He is demeaning to her because she's like, I have a job as a waitress. And then he was like, oh, you couldn't get a job for however long. And now all of a sudden being a waitress is like your life's calling. And she's just like, dude, it's a job. And then they go to the bar. I am going to try to rectify this timeline very quickly. So, little girl in Seoul. Gloria gets broken up with and evicted from her New York apartment. Gloria goes to her hometown, finds Oscar, or Oscar finds her rather. Gloria starts working for Oscar. Gloria walks through the park for the first time and kind of has a hunch that she might be the monster. Gloria starts working for Oscar. Gloria walks through the park a second time. Oscar shows up with a television. Gloria and Oscar are both monsters. Gloria goes home with Joel. Gloria and Oscar fight at the playground. Gloria continues to work for Oscar. Oscar sends Joel with furniture. Gloria goes to Oscar's house and he wholeheartedly apologizes. So perfectly rehearsed. And she's like, you know what? We were drunk. Drunk people do stupid shit. Gloria goes back to work again. He wants to force her to drink. It doesn't work. Tim shows up. Tim is demeaning to her. Tim wants to take her to work. Okay, we're at Tim wants to take her to work. He takes her to work and he meets Oscar, and Oscar is instantly jealous because Tim is a successful businessman from New York. And Tim has comments about the aesthetic of the bar because it's kind of like mishmashed. It's kind of all over the place. And Oscar overhears it, and he's not in any way polite. He is aware that Tim is not a patron. Tim is not a guest. Tim is never coming back. It doesn't matter if he's rude to Tim. So they sit down, and he flexes his power as her supervisor by being like, hey, Tim, do you want a beer? Okay, get a beer. And then she brings, she brings 3 back, and he was like, well, what are you doing? You're working. Like, and then someone else needed something, and he was like, hold on, Jim Bob, or whatever the fuck his name was. And he's like, what is the most irresponsible thing that you can do in this bar? And Tim's like, dude, I don't fucking know. Like, and he was like, I've done this and this and this and this, but that wasn't the most irresponsible thing. And he's walking, and he's getting more loud. He pulls out a firecracker from the back, and he's talking about how, when they were younger, or maybe like high schoolers or whatever, they had gotten them from Mexico or something, and they just never set this one off. And then, growing up, it just seemed like an irresponsible thing to do. And while he's doing it, he's unspooling the wire, the fuse, and his other patrons are just kind of like, oh, hell no. And they start leaving. And then he lights the fuse. Gloria and Tim hide behind a barrel, and it all goes off, and like stuff goes on fire, and they go to run out, and Tim grabs Gloria and let's go. And then Oscar's like, she's not going anywhere. And Tim's like, you're crazy. Yeah, she is. And he's like, nope. I just did the most irresponsible thing that anyone can do in this bar, and she's going to stay right here. So he is indirectly controlling her because she knows that this is at a threat of destroying neighborhoods in Seoul, because he's already made that threat. And so Gloria, she starts crying, and she's like, I can't. And then Tim is like, all right, well, I'm leaving in the morning. Give me a call if you want to come back to New York. I would really like to get you out of here. And Oscar's like, she's not going. And Tim leaves. And then when Gloria gets home, whatever time she gets home, her front porch lights were on. I don't know if she'd put them on or not. You can't really tell. She's walking through the house, and she turns on a light, and Oscar is already in the house. And he was sitting there in the dark waiting for her. She's like, what the fuck are you doing here? And he was like, oh, yeah, I've had your key. Your parents gave it to my parents. And she's just like, sorry, what? So this explains why he was in the house with the groceries. And it could also explain why her air mattress was empty. And he just so happened to show up with a futon. So he's in the house, and he's like, I'm just making sure that you don't get any bright ideas and call your darling boyfriend. And she's like, that's my ex-boyfriend. And he's like, you're not going anywhere. And she was like, you're not telling me what the fuck to do here. So he challenges him in a way and dials her boyfriend and says, yeah, you know what? I'll be there in the morning. And so then he gets up, and they fight. Like, they fight. Like, they break furniture, swing at each other with the furniture, fight, chasing each other through the house. He goes upstairs and he jumps out the upstairs window, lands in the pool. She runs down, goes through the backyard, chases him through, and they're trying to, I guess, race one another to the playground, or she's trying to prevent him from getting to the playground because she knows what he's going to do. This is when they get into the actual literal fist fight on the playground. This is when he punches her in the face, punches her in the gut, trips her, she falls. She hears the people in Soul screaming and she starts crying, she's sobbing, and he stomps Soul. Oops, sorry about that. He stomps Soul. I have corrected the timeline. I am sorry. So she then goes home defeated with a black eye, and she, at one point during the argument at her home while he was there, remembers her when they were kids. They were walking through the construction site that was located where the playground is, and they were both holding dioramas for school. Hers was of the city of Seoul, and it had a monster. And hers flew away. It got taken by the wind. And they went into the park to find it, and she remembers him stomping it. So she says during that conversation, like, you know, you feel small, or something to that respect. Kind of calls him out on, like, you hate your life, you feel small, you don't feel like you're good enough for anything, or whatever. I didn't love that she called out someone so severely unhinged. I admire it, but it set me on edge. And so, you know, then they fought and they got to they fought, whatever. Okay, so now she has a black eye, and she's going back home, and she's looking at the news, and she's really upset, and she has another memory of watching him stomp her diorama, and then I guess they both got, like, struck by lightning or something that made them, like, one with this playground land, and that made their, like, her diorama with her monster is the one that showed up in Seoul, and his diorama had a robot, which when he's in the playground showed up in Seoul. So I think that the storm did, like, a metaphysical connection to her and their dioramas and Seoul. So that is how they bridge that plot together. It's weak, but it doesn't matter. That's, like, really, like I said, it's a Trojan horse. So this is like the wooden ass. So she kind of has an epiphany of what what she can do to stop him, because she knows that physically, one-on-one in front of each other, she can't do anything. She knows that Garth he's done, he's gone, he's had enough of of Oscar's shit, and Joel won't do anything. Joel sees all of this happening, and Joel won't do anything. He just watches, doesn't get involved, which is not uncommon. So she realizes she needs to go to Seoul. So she gets on a plane, she goes to Seoul, she stands up Tim, which fucking whatever, he's stuck to. And then he gets all mad, and he's like, you owe me an explanation, blah, blah, blah. And he's, like, demeaning her and being mean to her and being horrible. And she's like, I don't know you shit, bro. And she's like, this is just something that I had to do. I'm safe. I did get on a plane, but not to New York. So then she hangs up and she's in Seoul, and it's around that time that the monsters show up normally. So Seoul has kind of caught on to the pattern, and they have alarms going for every time, like, so they can evacuate the area for safety. So everyone's evacuating and leaving, and she's walking towards the bay because she knows that the robot's gonna show up. So the robot shows up, and he's, flailing around, being an idiot, and she steps closer to him, and where Oscar is, the ground rumbles, and he kind of stops. So the robot stops, because this is a complete one-to-one, like, everything that they do, the monsters do. So she walks closer, and the rumbles get louder for Joel, and he looks over his shoulder, and he sees over the tree line, her monster is looking right at him. So he starts running, and she sees, because the robot's running. So she kind of goes forward, crawls down, and swoops up and grabs him. Then she goes to pick him up. The robot goes in the air, so she's got him. And she can hear him, right? Because there's still that connection, that they felt when she felt the helicopter, she felt the missile, she heard the people scream when they were dying. So she can hear him just as well. So she's got the robot hovering over the bay, and all of Seoul is like, the fuck just happened? Oscar starts, like, pleading, like, oh, please, 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 I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I didn't mean it, blah, blah, blah. Like, so he's pleading with her, like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I won't do that again, whatever. And, like, he sounds genuinely remorseful. And then his anger kicks in and he's like, put me down, you fucking bitch. And she realizes he meant none of what he said. She realizes that he's going to continue to terrorize her. He's going to continue to literally terrorize Soul. And she yeets him into the distance. So then the robot flies into the distance and, you know, the city of Seoul rejoices. So everyone starts going back in the streets. Everything's fine. She is okay. And she walks into a bar and she sits down and they offer her a drink and she's just like realizing that she can't drink and shouldn't drink. And then she's like, you know, do you want to hear a crazy story? And that's how the movie ends. If I were her, I would not retell that story. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the complexity around the characters of the film. I enjoyed that Gloria was flawed, because often in films I feel like our victim is like Disney Princess Perfect. That's not life. That's not real. I do believe that someone on the filmmaking team had experience with abuse and domestic violence and stuff like that, because it to me it felt real, right? Like, I also thought it was brilliant that they kind of paint her out in the beginning to be a train wreck. She's kind of unlikable. So, like, you kind of justify why her boyfriend's being a dick in the beginning, because it's like, well, you know, she was out drinking. She was being irresponsible. She was being shady. So I liked that they did that, because that's like real life. So I like that they made her kind of like, I remember saying when I watched it, like, you know, I was watching it with my boyfriend and I was like, dude, she sucks. So I didn't like her in the beginning. Like, I didn't like her character. I thought that she sucked. But I like after seeing the whole film, I like that they did that, because she was human. She's very human. Nobody's perfect. And so you don't have to be perfect to be a victim. And then they started off by making Oscar look like a decent person, which again is real life. People like this are very good at maintaining the facade of being good, kind, caring, considerate, perfect. But eventually there are cracks where the real personality comes through. So, you know, they don't always fool everybody all the time forever, but they do fool their victims. And I thought it was brilliant. I think Jason Sudeikis did a great job. I had watched and rewatched and rewatched and rewatched and rewatched Ted Lasso. So having him cemented in my brain as Ted and then seeing him as Oscar, I was like, I am uncomfortable. It's like, but you're a nice guy. You're Ted. You're Ted with the mustache. You're Ted. You do the running man on the... But Ted, you gotta believe. But be a goldfish, Ted. Like, so like my brain was just like, no. It'd be like watching Mr. Rogers punch Anne Hathaway in the face. I hated it. No, like, I'm sorry, Jason Sudeikis, you will forever be Ted Lasso in my brain, because I have rewatched that series 100 million times because I love it so much. So watching him be Oscar and start off as this nice guy, and then, you know, turn into a nightmare human was really something. And then again, you know, as I'm telling this terribly, I recommend you see it, because he drops like little bones for what kind of person he is. There's like subtleties throughout the entire time, and you watch it, you know, I mean, if you're watching this podcast and you're here at this point in the podcast, I've ruined the entire thing, so you only need to watch it once. But, you know, say you didn't watch the entire podcast and you just decided to magically fast forward to this point right now. If you haven't watched this movie and you haven't watched this podcast, watching it twice would probably be cool, because you'd probably be able to see a lot more stuff that you didn't see the first time. So I just thought it was really cool. It was super normal to see, and it's just like heartbreaking. You know, it's never fun to watch something like that. I do think Jason Sudeikis did a great job portraying an abuser. He totally hit the mark on the feigned apologies. He nailed that look that people get when they are unhinged and challenged. He hit the mark on how to be in the public. Like, he was well liked and he seemed like an awesome guy, but once confronted, his demeanor completely changed. There were moments that I felt nervous because of how Oscar was looking at Gloria, but in that final moment of the film, I was really happy that Gloria literally got to throw her abuser away, ensuring that he doesn't hurt anybody anymore. I wanted her to squish him, or maybe, like, you know, clap your hands, Like, but she didn't. Honestly, the film I thought was really good. I feel like when I was looking at the reviews and stuff, it was underappreciated. I feel like as someone who has survived domestic violence, like I believe it to be like a solid depiction of kind of what it's like. Obviously, it doesn't go into the details and the nuances and the minutia of it, because it is something that is built up by abusers brick by brick. But I thought it was really interesting, and it was a really decent depiction of how Gloria, as the survivor, she was flawed. And Oscar seemed like a great person, and that it's just so normal. And then Joel was a bystander. Freaking Garth was a bystander. It's so normal. It's so normal. So it felt like in like if you know, you know kind of plot. And I honestly, I'm so sorry for those who do know and who caught it. Please do remember that you don't deserve to be abused. Nobody deserves it. There is no justification for it. Even though Gloria sucked, she didn't deserve it. Please stay safe. Please, if you need help and support, rely on those resources. They're there for a reason. So I want you to be safe. And if you know someone in this situation, please be easy on them. Please don't judge them. It's not something that's easy to understand unless you've done it. And I hope you've not done it. But please be there for your people. Please support them. Please do not victim blame them. Do not say, I don't know how you got into this mess. How did you get yourself into this situation? If this person ends up leaving one abusive relationship and ending up in another, re-victimization is totally a thing. Totally normal. Totally common. Don't be a dick to your friend. Friends don't do that. You're supposed to be safe spaces for other people. Just give people grace. Support them where you can. Help them stay safe. But research how to do that, because in these situations, it's very delicate. Direct involvement, if you go about it brazenly, could result in more trouble for your friend. So just remember that you deserve more. Your friend deserves more. Everyone deserves more. There's so much to life. Abuse is not love, because people who love one another don't treat each other that way. You are worth so much, flaws and all. So this was a heavier episode. This was a holy crap, I can't get the timeline correct, even if it hit me in the face kind of episode. But I felt like it was important. It's something that I have some experience with. It's I mean, super common, unfortunately. It's something that coercive control and abusive power show up everywhere. It's not just a relationship thing. It shows up, you know, in this case, he was an employer. He wasn't even a relationship. He was he was a quote unquote friend. He was her employer. You know, you see this stuff a lot, and it's not just romantic relationships. No matter where it's coming from, no one deserves to receive it. That was my movie. That was my movie. If I were to shake the entire bag, shuffle the deck of cards, and tell it completely out of order. Like, wowie kazowie. I Tarantino'd the shit out of that. But I do hope that you watch it, because it was really good. And I will catch you next time. Later, Gator.